Hi all, welcome to another video. In this position, as you can see, we have the potential of opposite color bishops, and I'm sure you've heard or you've experienced that this mostly leads to a draw. So who better than Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, to show us how to play for a win. This position comes from Carlsen versus Dominguez, who played the 5+3 Blitz game on the 18th of September 2020. I will have the PGN in the description of the video. So in this position, Carlsen exchanged rooks to bring us to our opposite colored bishop endgame. As you can see in the pawn structure, white has a plus pawn on h3. The pawns on the g file are locked, the pawns on the c file are locked, and the pawns on the a file have the potential also to become locked, as they cannot pass each other. Well, the first move to play in this position for white is actually quite easy. If white would play something funny like bishop f3, then black would just play bishop to d4, trapping the white king, and we can forget playing for any advantage. Instead of that, we play king to g1, king to f6, bringing the king closer always is a good idea, king to f1, king to g5, where black has control over h4, and he wants to set up a blockade, of course, towards the white position. King e2, king f4, bishop to f3. Well, first of all, it's always good to have the bishop on a long diagonal, of course. On f3, it still has the same control over h5 as it had on g4, so it will support a future advance of the white pawn. It's connected to the g2 pawn, which is the base of the pawn chain at this moment, and it stops the black king of going to e4. Lastly, but not least, it frees the white pawn on h3 from guard duty. As you can see in this position, we cannot move h4 because we would instantly lose our bishop, and with bishop on f3, pushing the pawn will become a possibility. To stop that, black plays bishop to f6. Now we play king to d3, and our very basic idea here is to wander into the queen side and attack the black pawns. If there would be a black bishop standing on b6, we can kick him away with a well-timed a4 and a5. Black moves his king to, of course, oppose the white king again. King to c3, king to d6 with check, king b3, and king c7. The next move can be king to b6 to stop the white king from penetrating into the black position. If the black king is on b6, then we can also, as black, just move our bishop along the d8 h4 diagonal, and that way have our blockade perfectly set up. So now we play bishop to d5. Well, we're still, of course, on the same diagonal defending the g2 pawn. We're connected to the c4 pawn now. The idea is to also aid here with a white king walk to the king side now, and the bishop has also control over e6 and e4 squares. Now black plays bishop g5. Let's have a look what would happen if the black king would now move back to d6. Well, basically you give up blocking us from intruding on the queen side, and we play king a4. After king c7, you cannot stop us from playing king a5 anymore. King b8, king b5, and now the idea for white is simplistic. We move our king over and escort the white pawn further down the board. So black clearly doesn't want that, so instead we play bishop g5, keeping our king with the ability to play to king b6 when you have king a4. Now after king c3, king d6, a very interesting move here, bishop to a8. Let's look at an alternative. Let's say we want to walk over with our king instantly, king d3. Then black plays king to e5, shutting us out after king e2, king to f4, and we are not making any progress. So then why bishop a8? Well, we basically give black the move. Now, if black would make a mistake like king e5, then the key difference here is that instead of on d3, we are on c3, and here we can be very annoying again with our king going to the queen side. King to b3, king to d6, sprinting to defend against intrusion, king a4, king c7, king b5, attacking the pawn. Let's say bishop e7, and now the simple bishop d5, and this is a school example of zugzwang. Black basically just wants to give the move to white. Every single move that black will make its position worse. Clearly, if we move the a pawn, we will lose the a pawn, so that's not an option. Let's say we move the bishop, so bishop f8, because we want to keep defending the c5 pawn. Then we just have the simplistic h4, and h5 is next. Zugzwang is then renewed again, and we will continue this way and shuffle our pawn further down the board, which is absolutely not what black wants. So the only other piece that's left is the king. So let's say we go to c8, then king to c6 renews the zugzwang. What to do? Do we want to keep our pawn? Then we need to play king b8. Then we play king d7 again, and again. Now we have even a tempo on the bishop, and after that we move over to escort our pawn to go become a real queen instead of a small baby queen. If we take the other option, like okay, we clearly don't want that, we move our king to d8 to prevent white from doing this, then king b7 wins the pawn. As after a5, first we play bishop c6, stop the pawn from advancing, bishop d6, king to b6, attacking both pawns, and there is no way for black to keep both pawns. So that's why king e5 is not an option, and black has to play something like king f6, bishop f6 check. We continue, king d3, king e5, king to e3 with a very, very clear threat of attacking and winning the g3 pawn. So black needs to play king f5, and after king f3, bishop to e5, defending the pawn. We can move our h pawn one up. The black king is still can still not approach, as the king and pawn together have a blockade on g4 and g5. After bishop d6, you have the beautiful check, taking away even another square, so the black king cannot come any closer to our h pawn. It cannot go to the g file. It needs to just wait and see. It needs to go to f6 in this case. The king to g4 takes control of a very important square here now on g5, because this will allow us that after bishop e5 we can play the pawn to h5, as our king is now controlling very nicely g5, and that will allow us as well to move the pawn one further again to h6, still keeping the black king out. Black can do nothing but wait till we move the pawn finally to h7, and now the black king is tied to the defense of the white pawn. So king f3, since we now have accomplished that the black king needs to defend the pawn on that end, the idea is, again, dare I say simplistic, although not simplistic in execution. We want to move our bishop away, and then the white king will simply march into the position of black, harassing the pawns and winning them, hopefully. Now, the idea of the white king coming over and then blocking the h6 pawn and moving up the pawn to kick away the bishop is annoying, so black plays a5 as he wants to defend the black pawns from the long diagonal, and defend from the front, which is very, very reasonable thing to do. Bishop to c2 defends the pawn from advancing to a4 for now, and it is in line with the plan we had of moving our king to e4 to d5. Bishop to e5, king to e4 as planned. Now, bishop to c3, sorry, we can clearly not take the pawn because then we lose the bishop. That's very simplistic. Bishop to c3, king to f4, attacking the pawn, so bishop to e1 is forced. King to e5. Yeah, and now king h8, and after king d5, white had a3 here. White works we'll actually see later in this game as well. Bishop b4, king c6, king g7, king b5, pressure on both pawns, king h8, and now king to a4, supporting a potential a3. King g7, unfortunate, because now after a3, the pawn moves up. Bishop to d2, king to b5, attacking both pawns. The pawn on a3 is guarding the square where the bishop wants to be at this moment. So just attacking the pawn. After the pawn moves up, there is not a move legal, that is bishop c1 to b4, so black cannot defend both pawns, and therefore black will lose a pawn, and Dominguez resigned in this position. I have to say that if you go back a few moves, instead here of king g7, if black would have played bishop c3, then it would actually be a draw, because there's no progress that white can make really. If we attack, we can kick, but we can never attack both pawns at the same moment, unless we give up our control. Chasing the bishop, just moving, and there is no way we can make any progress, as this is a brilliant fortress at this moment. So let's recap. In the original position, Magnus decided to trade rooks to go in an opposite colored bishop ending. Of course, we improved the position of our king. Then Magnus created threats on the queen side, forcing black over, creating threats on the king side again, creating a bit of a split for black. That helped us help Magnus improve his position to allow him to move the pawn up, tying the black king to the defense, creating threats again on the other end where now only the bishop could defend, harassing the pawn on g3, king d5, and as we can see, kicking out the bishop with a brilliant move, a3. It's very nice to see with that control and win the game. Now we have to say that a brilliant play, then black should have been able to draw, but that is just what Carlsen absolutely can. He doesn't give up, he fights, and I think it's the beauty of chess that even in positions that are officially drawn, a small edge, if consistently pressured by the opponent, can actually go into convert itself into a win. So the key is always keep playing. If you have a small edge, try to squeeze that edge out, and in the worst case scenario, you still get to draw. Hey, thanks for watching all. Please comment what type of endgames you want to see, or perhaps you want to see me analyze a full master game. Whichever suggested comment gets the most likes, I will look at that and I will analyze that. So participate in creating new videos. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you again. Bye bye.